This is our COVID Roundup and CDC update for December 20th, 2024. Starting off with our CDC COVID variant tracker, we see that XCC, this green here, is continuing to grow pretty rapidly. And we are also seeing that KP3.1.1 continues to head out. But of note, LP8.1 is also growing very rapidly as well. I believe LP8.1 is going to be the one to watch for this winter. The color it's denoted by is this orange right here. And you can see over the past 3 reporting periods that it has doubled each time. Currently, XCC is making up about 45% of all variants by proportion, KP3.1.1 is making up about 24%, and LP8.1 is making up about 8%. And this appears to be pretty consistent with Raj's COVID variant tracker as well, with the only surprise in there being KP3.1 making up 5% in his tracker. And again, these are different numbers because Raj is looking at a different data set than the CDC is looking at, where these largely consist of different facilities. So what is important is not the numbers themselves, but the trends. And looking from last week to this week, we see that KP2 has completely dropped out. The KP3 family has remained constant since last week, but that's because while KP3.1.1 decreased pretty significantly, KP3.1 increased by a similar amount. And then as a reminder for the MC family, those are descendants of KP3.1.1, and since last week they've decreased pretty significantly. And then also of note, XCC has continued to increase, as well as LP8.1, and here this is blown up for a better view. And you might be thinking, well, what is LP8.1 a descendant of? It's a descendant of KP1.1.3, so it's in a different branch, a different part of the lineage than KP3.1.1, meaning that it has different mutations on it. Next, moving on to the Walgreens COVID positivity test tracker. Since the previous week, there is no change in positive tests. However, we are seeing that there are increases still in the east, and these are shifting over to the middle of the country. And the spatial pattern for COVID is typically it starts in the east, it moves to the center of the country through the west, and then spreads up and down. And the CDC epidemiologic tracker is showing a similar thing. They're showing that we're hitting that mid-stage. So again, we're starting in the east, moving to the middle of the country, so we're in that second stage. Then it goes to the west, which is third stage, and then it just spreads all throughout, which is the fourth stage. Next, moving on to New York State and the COVID wastewater surveillance map. While COVID wastewater levels certainly aren't low in New York State, the bulk majority are at moderate levels, while only about 25% of all reporting wastewater facilities are reporting at the highest levels. And finally, moving over to wastewater scan and the 28 reporting wastewater facilities to wastewater scan in California. In California, we're just starting to get a bump up in the wastewater signal, meaning that that shift of COVID from the middle of the country to the west is starting to happen. And then when we look out to the 148 reporting wastewater facilities to wastewater scan in the US, we see a very large signal increase, which means that a lot of people are starting to get really sick with COVID in the US, where currently the highest COVID levels are in Dover, New Hampshire, and then there's also very high levels in Jackson, Michigan, in Millbury, Massachusetts, in Warren, Michigan, and in Yankton, South Dakota. So if you aren't already, it is time to mask up.